I was really into the Bigfoot stuff. I read as much as I could. I watched whatever came along. It really did. It changed my life.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Very exciting.
And that is one of the more detailed sighting reports I have ever heard of a Bigfoot. And that sounds like, to me, from what I gather, is not the last sighting report you've had.
Oh, no. And on top of that, let me just say, fast forward a little bit. I wound up eventually getting with a BFR investigator on another encounter, and he had, as sharing this information with him, he had told me that just the week before he was taking a report from that same spot I saw my initial one at, and there was 2 drift boats full of people that were unrelated, and both of them saw a younger Sasquatch turning rocks over on the riverbed.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so he said that area, and that was within a mile of where I had my sighting, my original sighting. And he had went on to tell me that area is a hot spot. So I haven't been back to look through there. I have a lot of other stuff going on, so, and I've had other sightings, so enough to keep me busy.
Well, yeah, because you've got the rest of your life to go here to tell us about what happened. So what happened next, or what kind of next landmark in your life can we talk about next?
Okay, then that would be, I was living in Yelm, Washington, grew up for the most part, here in western Washington, so Seattle, and then on down south. So spent a good part of time in Yelm, and we bought some undeveloped property outside of Yelm, up on a old mill area. And so it's not too far from Fort Lewis.
Yes.
One summer, I was a teenager. One summer, this was 78, 79. One summer in the evening, it was late summer. School was getting ready to start. Just within a couple of days, was getting ready to start back. So we're sitting there, and I remember Phil Collins was on the radio, and my family had gone down to have dinner with my aunt in town, and my neighbor friend was up, and we were just listening to music sitting on the front porch in the shade. And I saw some lights coming over the trees, and it was still fairly daylight, so they had to be pretty intense lights, which is not uncommon around Fort Lewis to see lights. But the thing was, when I told him to turn the music down, I heard no sound. And what I thought was lights further away filtering through the trees was actually a UFO on the edge of the road, at tree level. So at that point, a rather large spherical UFO that traveled very slow at a brisk walk for me, came out at an angle over our dirt road, and at that point I walked out and started walking underneath it and looking at it, and it was at treetop level. Again, it was moving at a brisk walk. My friend was in our house with his head peeking around the door frame, yelling at me to come back. I followed this, as it followed the path of the road down to the T. I followed this UFO walking underneath it, and the neighbors that were working in their yard on the left hid behind their pump house, and they were yelling at me to get away, to come to them. And I just put my hand up like, like I got this. And I was so interested in taking in as much detail. And, it's not that I'm super brave or anything, but I'm one of those people that puts fear into the background so you can have the experience. And then later on, I might be going, what was I thinking? But for the moment, I was so caught up in what I was seeing and taking in as much detail as possible that that's really what my focus was. The neighbor to the right of me jumped off of his tractor and hid behind it. As it traveled, it got down to the T of the road, and it kind of cut the corner. And then I followed around. I was still underneath it, for a bit, and then it cut across the trees and out over a pasture, where it slowed almost to a hover, but not completely stopped. And at that point, I started to go through the fence and head that way out in the pasture, and it moved on and headed towards the town of Rainier. So
now,
when
I went back for a moment there, Mike, because I wanted to clarify a little bit, back up just a bit. You're saying, was this during daylight hours, first of all?
Yes. So as you can see how light it is outside where you're at right now in Glacier, that's about how light it was. It was about this time of the night. It was early evening. It was still light.
Very, very nice. Okay, so you're in a rural community outside of Yelm, and this craft, you're saying, was hovering at treetop level and going down the road in a very slow pace that you could actually walk under.
It was a brisk walk, but yes, it was a fast walk, but yes, I could walk under it. I was taking in all the details. Now, at an angle, you could see little smaller red lights on this. And first of all, let me go back. So it's spherical. It's very large. It takes up a large majority of my view. And then it was what I called back then, I called a flat black metal. But now that the stealth materials come out, it really looked more like that. And at that time, I didn't have anything to compare it to but flat black metal. It had patterns on it. I wanted to say texture, but it was more of these patterns, these with angles. And in that, there was grooves that came from not vertical down from top to bottom. Some of them were, but some of them came at an angle and intersected. Now, deep inside of that, it looked something like electricity, or a blue, like a dark blue, like a cobalt blue, and a light blue mix, plasma or something. That's all I can describe it as. And that was, and you couldn't see that if you weren't at the right angle. You couldn't see up inside those little slots. So I saw no door on the bottom. I saw no place for landing gear. I saw nothing that looks like a window. And it made no sound, not a hum, nothing. It didn't make my hair stand up. There was no static to it. The change in my pocket didn't seem to want to lift up out of my pocket or anything, so nothing magnetic that I could tell. It was one of the strangest things, and that totally tops Bigfoot.
Oh, heck yeah. Now, as you were walking down this road, and this craft is treetop level, obviously if you put your hand out at arm's length, it would be larger than your hand possibly, but tell us, if you could put both hands up over your head, is there any way you can describe how wide this thing was to you?
Yeah, if you... so let me see. Let's just put it this way, standing on the road, which was 15 to 20 foot wide, I would say anywhere from 3 to 4 road widths, because 2 cars could pass on that road. So 3 to 4 road widths wide. That's about how wide the craft was.
Oh my goodness, that is huge and very
now,
low.
So when my family got back, of course, again, they didn't believe me. The neighbors were told, the children were told not to talk about it. The parents didn't want to talk about it. The guy on the tractor said he doesn't know what he saw, and he doesn't want to talk about it. And the people that own the property in the pasture where it slowed to almost a hover, they were in the house and had no idea what was going on. When school started up, shortly after this, I approached the two neighbor kids, and tried to ask them about it, what they thought. And they told me they were told not to talk to me. Then when I got home that night, their parents had called my family and told them I tried to talk to them about it, and I was told not to, so I got a butt chewing for that. Now, to fast forward 6 years later, I'm at a party, and I hear this conversation next to me where this guy says, he starts describing pretty much the same craft, and says that him, his sister, his mom and dad, and the neighbor all noticed this going past the water tower out towards Mill Road and up on Fox Hill. That's where I saw it. That's where we lived. So it was the same craft, and it was at the same time.
Right.
So that just confirmed even more that what I had saw, but made me feel much better that somebody outside of my neighborhood also saw it. So we had a conversation about it and what his thoughts were, and he just, I asked him, well, what do you think it was? And he said, honestly, I don't know. I've never seen anything like it. I didn't notice any noise. As far as I know, it was a UFO, but I don't really know what it was. So he saw the same. He also saw the red lights, but did not see the blue plasma-like lines inside the grooves that I was talking about. He didn't see any of that.
Yeah. And so you're saying that there were, in addition to those blue plasma lights kind of in the seams of this craft, there were red lights as well. Can you tell us about those configurations?
Yes, those lights were in, each one of those that I saw was only in something like an obtuse triangle. It was like a weird shaped sort of triangle. It was 3 angles, but just kind of canted to the side. Just weird looking. The way that, and it stepped down, like it was the same pattern that went in, and then there was another. That's where the texture kind of was. Instead of it being a pattern, there was in the flat area there where the red lights were, there was sort of a texture, and I can't really tell you, other than lumpy, I can't really tell you, or bumpy, I should say, I can't really tell you exactly what it was. With the plasma stuff moving around in the grooves, that kept drawing my attention into that, trying to take that information in. So although I did notice the texture around the red lights, I didn't really pay much attention to that detail.
Okay, and obviously these lights were bright enough that they were more than noticeable even during the early evening hours of daylight, right?
Correct. And now I would say they were like LED lights, really bright, like LED lights. And the weird thing is, no aircraft from Fort Lewis, from Gray Field, nothing, or even from McCord, no jets, nothing. It was just the whole experience was really wild.
And while you were doing this, while you were actually just walking at a fast pace underneath this craft to keep up with it, were you receiving any impressions at all from this thing? I would imagine your heart rate is going through the roof, but any other impressions that you could think of?
No, I didn't get anything. Now that I've been doing this for so many years, that people say they get downloads or they get messages or some stuff like that. I didn't get anything like that I know of. Maybe it's in there and it needs to be woken up. I don't know, but I don't know of anything like that I got. I get no weird sensation. Like I said, no feeling like the hair standing up, nothing. Yeah, my heart was pounding, but again, I was very focused. And you've known me for a little bit. I walk right into this stuff and set the fear aside so that I can experience as much. I mean, life's about getting as much experience as I can. So I did that, and it was pretty wild. Now, to tell you another case where this. And I had no missing time as well. And according to my buddy, which stayed on my property and didn't follow me down there, he didn't even come out to the road. He did see it, and he never saw like any beam of light. He never heard any noise. He never saw anything weird going on the top, which I really didn't see the top of it very well. When it came out across the trees, where it cut across the trees out over that pasture and slowed down, it was already so far away, it was probably 80 to 120 yards from me. So I really wasn't able to see. I could see where the top was rounded. It was a sphere, but I really couldn't see much detail on the top from that distance. So I couldn't tell you if there was any